Hi, welcome to Proof Cocktail Bar. My name is Jeff Jameson, and today we are going to talk about tequila and mezcal, two of Mexico's finest exports. These two spirits share a long history and a very similar history. If you go back far enough, they were produced in a very similar way. The passage of time, has now created quite a distinction between the two styles of spirits, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But originally, when they were being prepared in Mexico, it was a very similar process. The agave plant would be harvested, and then the leaves would be removed, leaving nothing but the piña, which is the pineapple or the center of the agave plant. In the case of tequila, that plant was the Weber blue agave. In the case of mezcal, there's a number of agave that are used in the production. These plants, after they had been stripped of their leaves, would then be roasted. Traditionally in an earthen fire pit, which would caramelize a lot of the sugars within the plant and start the flavor development that would eventually end up in the spirit. The roasted plants would then be taken and crushed either by hand or by a large concrete wheel pulled by a horse or donkey to crush the piña of the agave. Then that crushed agave was set aside for 3 or 4 days to ferment. You would have what was called an octi or agua miel in Mexico, and by the Oaxacan people, a pulque. Take that liquid, distill it down, and what you have is a young or joven mezcal or tequila. Tequila, using only the Weber blue agave, is produced primarily in Jalisco. Mezcal, it's coming from Oaxaca. For a long period of time had a worm in it. There is a number of different reasons why it's been discussed that that worm existed, but primarily it was a marketing tool. The passage of time has allowed for quite a divergence in style of these two products. Tequila's popularity all over other parts of the world over the last 15, 20 years have seen it create more of an aged expression. So we have things like reposados and añejos and older, softer tequilas. Barrel aging typically makes products softer and more balanced compared to like a Blanco, which comes off the still and is immediately bottled. Mezcal, on the other hand, hasn't seen quite the rise in popularity over the last 15 or 20 years, so those old style productions and honoring tradition in the way that they make it, it still exists. Therefore, the product has not changed much over those years. More of a pure example of the original origins of the product. Tequila now is seen all over the world. It's a luxury product. It's considered to be one of the great spirits, and if you have great spirit collections of aged spirits, things like this Tears of Llorona should be in it. They're really well made, they're exceptional, but again, the style tends to be a little lower in alcohol, softer, a little easier expression. Mezcal, on the other hand, there is multiple types of mezcal, mixtos, which are mixes of two types of plant in one mezcal, as well as mezcals that are made from one variety of agave species. They're typically named on the bottle, so if you see something made from the most commonly grown agave species, espadín, we call it espadín. And there's also ceremonial blends known as pechugas. All of these mezcals, again, are usually bottled joven or unaged. There is some examples of aged mezcals out there. Plants like the quiche or the madre quiche tend to have higher, elevated, more citrus notes. Plants like tobala tend to be more creamy and cheesy on the palate. And when a mezcalero does a mixto or blends two of those together, he or she's attempting to find balance between those or symmetry. Further distinction between these two spirits is the cultivation of the plants. In Jalisco, there is quite a bit of blue agave farming. That has come from demand. They've had to find ways to take these wild plants and cultivate them, farm them, and produce them at a rate that is great enough that they can support the world's tequila desires. Mezcal, mostly wild agriculture. They're taking these plants from the wild and then creating this product. That is now changing, however, due to the popularity of mezcal. Mezcal over the last 5 to 10 years has increased in popularity by tenfold. That has forced a lot of these producers to look at ways to cultivate these plants and to also create nurseries in places where these plants can flourish and not go extinct, because many of them are actually quite rare in the wild. So we need to be very respectful of that when we're drinking either of these spirits, knowing that the time that goes into the growth of these plants and the time that it goes into some of the agings of these materials, we are truly having something that is very special. It is also reflected in the price often when you are buying these products, that they are rare and special.